favourite store. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Ben Leo. Tonight, days after Hamas parade the coffins of the Bibas babies in Gaza, pro-Palestine protesters in London hold their own mock funeral in a sickening display of cruelty. Meanwhile, in Manchester, oh dear, more Palestine morons rip up the Union flag on the streets of England's second city. Also tonight.
Do you remember that phone call between you and William about Kate's diagnosis?
It was awful. Absolutely awful. It's the lowest I've ever seen him.
Prince William's former royal aide, who first blew the whistle on Meghan Markle's alleged bullying, breaks his years-long silence, as well as giving a first-hand account of Princess Catherine's cancer diagnosis. And
they are not the answer for working people in Britain.
as he takes aim at dangerous Reform UK, are the Prime Minister and Labour absolutely rattled by Nigel Farage and friends? And President Trump is taking absolutely no prisoners in his White House revenge mission.
You better comply, because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one.
Joining me on the panel tonight is businessman and activist Adam Brooks, GB News contributor Chloe Dobbs, and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Very good evening to you. Plus, we'll also get the results shortly from the German elections. The numbers are rolling in as we speak. The AfD look like they'll be short of winning a majority as expected, and I think they'll be declined a coalition as well. We'll get the lowdown on that in just a tick. Big show coming up elsewhere, including, of course, all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press. First, though, your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Ben, thank you. The top stories. Pope Francis remains in hospital where he's also experienced mild kidney problems, but continues to be alert and well-oriented, according to the Vatican. Pope Francis has asked for prayers as he continues to receive treatment in hospital for double pneumonia. The 88-year-old spent a tranquil night in hospital last night in Rome, according to the Vatican. It described his condition as critical for the first time yesterday, reporting he'd also needed blood transfusions. Downing Street says the Prime Minister spoke with NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte this evening, and ahead of the 3-year anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine tomorrow, the Prime Minister began by saying Ukraine must be in the strongest position possible. They agreed there could be no negotiations about Ukraine without Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky says he's willing to give up his position as president for peace in Ukraine or a NATO membership. Zelensky says it's not his dream to remain president for a decade. His comments come as EU leaders are due to meet in Ukraine tomorrow. Sir Keir Starmer has urged Donald Trump to stand by Ukraine with a security guarantee and warned a bad peace deal would be a disaster for everyone. In other news, a British couple in their 70s have been arrested by the Taliban in Afghanistan. 79-year-old Peter Reynolds and his wife Barbie, who's 75, were returning to their home in Bamiyan on the 1st of February when they were detained. The couple have been running training projects in Afghanistan for 18 years. It's not known exactly what the couple were arrested for, but projects run by them include one training mothers and children, which had apparently been approved by the local authorities. In other news, the polls in Germany have closed and votes are being counted, with the exit poll predicting the Conservative Christian Democrats will be the biggest party with 28.5%. Germany's Conservative leader Friedrich Merz has said he would try to form a government that represents the whole country. Meanwhile, the AfD are on as much as 20% of the vote, Social Democrats on 16.5%. In a post on his Truth Social website, the US president said, "This is a great day for Germany," adding the German people got tired of no common sense agenda, especially when it comes to energy and immigration. And finally, a 16-year-old boy has been arrested after a teenager was stabbed in front of shoppers in a Primark store in Nottingham. Nottinghamshire police said the 17-year-old is in hospital with serious injuries after being stabbed in the chest this morning. Officers believe there was an altercation outside the store between a group of young people before the attack happened. Nottinghamshire police says the 16-year-old was arrested on suspicion of causing GBH. Those are the latest headlines for now. More news in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening. Thank you for your company. A few days ago, the demons at Hamas and their supporters in Gaza held a public parade of dead Israeli babies and their mother. Baby Kafir was 9 months old when Hamas took him hostage from Israel alongside his brother Ariel, who was 4. Here they are. They never returned home because Hamas killed them with their bare hands. The boys are the same age as my 2 sons, and I'll never forget this harrowing footage of their mother, Shiri, desperately pleading for Hamas to spare them when they scooped them up on October the 7th. Shiri also never made it home alive. Hamas killed her too, then messed around with the return of her body by initially handing over a complete stranger. Hamas celebrated their deaths this week with that twisted act of public theatre when they returned the Bibas family in padlocked coffins to the Red Cross. Men and women of Palestine brought their children to the show and cheered as the babies' coffins went past. What Hamas did to those babies can never be defended as resistance or freedom fighting. It's just pure evil. And you can criticise Israel all you want for the number of children and women killed in Palestine since their retaliation to October the 7th. Whether you believe the Hamas-run health authority figures or not, I too at times have raised concerns about the number of innocent Palestinian children being killed in this war, and I've even laughably been called a Hamas sympathiser for saying so. But one thing Israel has never done is publicly parade the coffins of dead Palestinian babies. Because unlike Hamas, Israel has never intended to kill children on purpose. They certainly never kidnapped any Palestinian babies and murdered them with their bare hands. So where does that leave room temperature IQ Palestine protesters here in the UK? After more than 2 years of protests on the streets of London every week, did that depraved Hamas parade finally get through their skulls? No, of course it didn't. Don't be silly. That rank footage was from a protest in London yesterday. 2 babies and their mother murdered by barbarians, and those idiots come out in force again. Let's take another look at it and soak up the reality of what they were doing yesterday in London. We have thousands of Hamas sympathisers on the streets of our capital, despite the murder of innocent babies at the hands of terrorists. They were at it again in Manchester too, this time showing their contempt at the very country that allows them to behave in such a petulant manner without punishment. Refugees are welcome here! Refugees are welcome here! Deary me. So if you were listening on radio just then, we just shared a clip of pro-Palestine delinquents in Manchester tearing up the Union flag on the streets of Britain's second city. And let's make it a hat-trick, shall we? Why not? There's plenty of examples. Here's a middle-class do-gooder walking around the streets of Britain holding the blood-stained effigy of an infant baby, Palestinian flags waving in the background. A complete and utter moron whose hatred for Israel consumes her so much that she looks past the murder of 2 innocent babies by Hamas and the sick public parade that followed. Let me be frank, this country is absolutely riddled with those who despise us and hate our way of life. That's the fault of politicians who have allowed the rot to fester for decade after decade. The desecration of our country continues, and I actually think it will get worse for a while yet. In fact, I think it has to before things get better. But soon, things will change. And change will come. And these planks, the type I've just showed you, will scurry back to the rocks they crawled out from. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. The businessman and activist Adam Brooks, GB News contributor Chloe Dobbs and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Good evening to you all. Chloe, I was totally stunned by the scenes from Gaza this week when Hamas paraded the bodies of those poor babies. As I said, the same age as my boys. It hit me pretty hard. But to see in London yesterday pro-Palestine protesters holding a mock funeral in the same light as Hamas did just days before in Gaza, I was just sickened to my stomach. Why do these people feel so emboldened to behave like this?
I think it's absolutely disgusting, and it's clear to me that there are plenty of people in this country that have themselves been indoctrinated by Hamas, just like how Hamas, as you see from them all cheering and celebrating in the videos of them handing over the hostages, it's clear they have indoctrinated their own people. I saw, clearly, even after all this footage of them just behaving in the most vile way, Hamas, when handing over the hostages, people here in the West are still going along with their indoctrination. So you may have seen there was a video of one of the hostages that was going to be handed over giving a kiss on the cheek to the Hamas terrorists, and they're waving around their goodie bags, and someone posted it saying, "Oh, look how lovely the Hamas Hamas were to the people that they kept captives. They loved them and they're thanking them for the amazing experience they had being held in tunnels in Gaza. I'm thinking, what is wrong with you people? You then see the zoomed-out shot where the cameraman goes up to the guy right before, whispers in his ear, presumably saying, oh, make sure you give a kiss on the cheek so that it looks good for the cameras. It's just unbelievable. And when we had last week on Camilla Tomney's show, the commentator from the UAE saying there are more extremists in Britain than there are in the Middle East, that was absolutely shocking to me.
Yeah, there we go. Says it all, doesn't it? Adam, what do you make of these scenes we just showed then of people ripping up the Union Jack on the streets of Britain?
I mean, that makes me really angry because, I mean, I don't condone that, and I don't condone the person that was burning the Quran the other week, but he was arrested. So if the police are going to arrest someone for burning a Quran, why are they not arresting someone for doing that? I don't believe either should be arrested.
No.
But it's two-tier justice. Now, the protesters, they honestly believe they're the good guys. Now, if they believe that, why are they covering their faces? I mean, that's shocking. I don't care what side of the conflict you are in support of, what religion you are, what nationality you are. Anyone that celebrates the death of babies, for me, has lost all concept of what it means to be alive and be a human being. It's sickening, and again, as a father myself, it's very upsetting. What is the matter with these people?
Yeah,
Bill, there's lots of them.
Bill, I've received lots of flack before from viewers and so on for even just raising concern about the number of Palestinian kids dying. They've called me, quite laughably, a Hamas sympathiser and so on. But as I said in the introduction there, Israel, when they kill accidentally women, children and so on, they never intend to kill them. And one thing they certainly don't do is parade their dead bodies in coffins around Tel Aviv or whatever. So what's going on here where we see what Hamas did, and yet the reaction here in Britain from these idiots is to go out on the streets again?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's no moral equivalence whatsoever between the actions of Hamas and the actions of the government of Israel. Hamas are terrorists. What happened on October the 7th, 2023 was an abomination. I frankly despair at some of the far-left campaigners who allow themselves to be used and come across as supporters of Hamas. I think that's an abomination. But Israel, through its actions in response, has alienated their friends and caused real concern. And I regard myself as a friend of the state of Israel. 50,000 people, and we can have a dispute about the numbers. The medical journal Lancet puts it higher than 50,000 Palestinians slaughtered, huge numbers of children amongst that number, aid blockaded and stopped getting in to Israel. And I think that is enormous concern. And there are, frankly, extremists on both sides of this debate. The far right ultra-nationalists have got a hold on the Netanyahu government. They're opposed by 2/3 of Israeli people, and we desperately need a settlement. So we've got a ceasefire, we've got to secure it, we need to move to the next phase and actually demilitarise Gaza, but critically, what happens to the policing of Gaza in that regard? And I think it has to involve the Arab states. And then we've got to move on to a two-state solution, which is the only ultimate security for both Israelis and Palestinians.
So what do we do then, Chloe, with the idiots here? Because whatever happens in Israel and Gaza is one thing. Many people will disagree with you on that. They'll say Hamas should have released the hostages. Of course they should. You want the military campaign to stop? Release the damn hostages and also bring them back alive. Don't bring 2 young kids back, babies and toddlers, in coffins and then parade them around.
They've been strangled, reportedly.
They've been strangled with their bare hands. I hate to say it on national television, even at this time, but as I said, they've been strangled with their bare hands, those poor babies. Chloe, what do we do with the morons here? Because whatever happens in Israel, Gaza, these idiots still live amongst us, in London, in Manchester.
It is scary that these people live amongst us, but we do have free speech in Britain. I agree with Adam that I don't want two-tier policing. I want it to be the case that, if the guy who was arrested for burning a Quran, that should not have happened, and these people shouldn't be arrested either. I think it's disgusting and people just have to call it out for what it is. More people need to speak out about it. But what I think we need to be clear on is when people are actually inciting violence on the streets of Britain, that something is done about it. And people who are radicalised, that programmes like the Prevent programme, they need to step up, because we've seen so many terrifying attacks from radicalised people on streets across Europe recently.
Adam, in the US, President Trump is deporting, for example, example, university students, foreign students who are vocal about supporting Hamas or what's going on there. Do we need to do the same here? And in actual fact, root out anyone who is on these protests who aren't from Britain, they're here on visas maybe or whatever else. Do we need to kick them out as well?
We don't need these sort of people on the streets of London or our country. At the end of the day as well, I believe that many of these protesters are paid or have incentives to be at these protests. It's the same placards at the anti-racist ones, at the Gaza protests. And
who's paying them? Who?
I don't know, but they're very organised groups with placards. Yeah.
They put them all out, they lay them all out at the start of the day.
And who is funding that? Because that will come to tens of thousands of pounds for every protest. But I was stopped at a Katie Hopkins event just a few weeks ago that I went, that my friend was hosting. And when they recognised me when I got out of the taxi, the behaviour of some of these protesters, they're 60-odd years of age, acting like 5-year-olds, you know, putting their fingers up, doing really rude gestures. They're mentally deranged. These people are not all the ticket.
Let's have a reality check. The Socialist Workers' Party have honed in on every demonstration for the whole of my adult political life. And who funds them? I mean, you can go for conspiracy theories. I've heard conspiracy theories saying the CIA funds the Socialist Workers' Party.
Well, I've been doing some deep diving into USAID this week. USAID, I mean, there's plenty of CIA-funded American campaigns that have been funded.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I disagree with you, Adam. You know, and Chloe's right. The dividing line is violence and advocacy of violence. If you commit that, then the whole force of the law should come against you. If you don't, you've got to take the arguments on politically.
Our national flag is inciting violence?
No, technically I don't. I find it repugnant. But I'm talking about people who urge violence and commit acts of violence. That should be beyond the pale. Beyond that, you've got to win the argument politically. And what really concerns me, and I talked about, and I am a long-standing supporter of the State of Israel and a friend of Israel, but what concerns me about their response is, you know, 50,000 Palestinians slaughtered. Not only is that morally questionable, but in terms of Israel's self-interest, they are radicalising generations of Palestinians who are never going to forgive them for this, and that's not self-interested.
Let's also remember that a lot of people, well, thousands of people on these protests are supporting a terrorist group.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're wrong.
That have committed rape, that have killed babies, and that have, you know, they slaughtered people at a peace concert. Those people were there for a peace concert.
Hamas are barbarians, but Israel is a democratic state, and it has to be held to higher standards.
Yeah, and to think some politicians here want Palestinian refugees. Adam, as you said, when they all support Hamas, most of them do. Look at the video I showed you in the introduction.
The children are indoctrinated. The children are brought up to hate Israel and to hate the West. So if we're bringing families here, we've possibly got children that could be terrorists in 10 or 15 years.
OK, panel, thank you very much. Bit of a change of gear now. Your chance to win in the Great British Giveaway. You could be one of 2 winners, an iPhone shopping vouchers and 10 grand in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you need.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British Giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Very good luck to you. Up next, after Sir Keir Starmer today, did you see it? He launched a blistering attack on Reform UK. Have Labour been rattled by Nigel Farage and co? And will the Prime Minister bring up Sir Keir Starmer in conversation when he meets Donald Trump next week? This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Underestimate what you did, because to do it in their backyard as well, I bet they weren't happy about it, were they, Brad?
No, definitely not. Well, it makes it all the more sweeter. So they're usually pretty dominant in a two-man event, but four-man's usually where we can challenge them. And yeah, we managed to do it yesterday and put down 2 solid runs. And yeah.
So yeah, funding was a big issue for us in the last quad, but because of our results recently, we've picked up a lot more funding from UK Sport. So we're well funded now, and but yeah, the Bob is in the back of the van behind us, so we're driving it down to St Maritz as we speak. So yeah, it's, that's how it all works in the background in bobsleigh.
Brad, you're the pilot, correct? So you're up front.
Yeah.
Now, what happens? I always wonder, because I remember seeing John Noakes on. Do you remember John Noakes on Blue Peter when he fell out of the Bob and he ended up showing the back of his backside on TV because he had a big scar on there? What? So you've got the brake man. You're at the front. So where are you then, Aaron? Are you what number are you?
So I'm number 3. Yeah.
Right. So what do you do there? Is it just a matter of it's the running power is what it's all about to get off to a good start, and then you can sit and enjoy the ride?
Yeah, that's it. So for number 2 and myself, number 3, it's all about getting that Bob off the line and then just zipping it up to as high a speed as we can, basically. Getting in, staying low, having good aerodynamics, and staying still and let Brad do the work.
Yeah, it's definitely not a comfortable position for them, because we're bending them and twisting them into quite an uncomfortable position to get as aerodynamic as possible. And when you've got 6 times G's pushing you through that is not... Yeah, not
definitely
fun.
stiff back this morning, that's for sure.
Because I'm just thinking where me and Eamon would sit. Is it 2 and 3, or would he go at number 4? What do you fancy?
I would be too frightened to do that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Got a sneak peek of me there in the sting. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. Welcome along. Now, did you see this? Last night, President Donald Trump appeared to welcome the rise of Reform UK in Britain.
The leader of the UK Reform Party, who, by the way, did really well in that last election. He took it by storm, and they say he's going to do even better this time.
And 12 hours later, our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, launched an attack on Reform UK at the Scottish Labour conference.
A dangerous right-wing politics, even here in Scotland, that will say they are the ones who can tilt politics towards the interests of working people. They claim to be the party of patriotism, but they're fawning over Putin. No, they are not the answer for working people in Britain.
By the way, notice the contrast in energy there between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump in their speeches. You know, a bit of a gulf in difference. Anyway, on Thursday, the Prime Minister is set to meet President Trump at the White House in Washington. I do wonder if Nigel Farage will come up in conversation. So, despite being mocked by the likes of Wes Streeting for having just 5 MPs and Keir Starmer warning of Reform's dangerous politics, are Labour actually rattled by Nigel Farage and his gang? Well, I'm joined now by political commentator Andy Twelves and leader of Reform UK in the London Assembly, Alex Wilson. Alex, good evening. Andy, good evening. Good evening. Alex, are Labour rattled?
Absolutely, and they have every reason to be rattled, Ben, because you can see in the polling numbers, we are now averaging over 25% in the polls. 4 separate polling companies have put us in first place, so ahead of the Conservatives, ahead of Labour. Our membership has been surging off the scale. On Boxing Day, we were watching the ticker just to see if we would overtake the Conservative membership. Left that far behind now. We're now less than 100,000 behind Labour, and on the current trajectory, we'll soon be the biggest party, the mass membership organisation in this country. So, yes, Labour are rattled, and they have every reason to be. We're starting to make progress in council by-elections as well, and of the 11 seats that we've gained in those by-elections, 7 have been from Labour. So, yeah, Labour are rattled.
Andy, why is the Prime Minister, instead of focusing on the agenda of the country and trying to get us back on our feet, why is he focusing on 5 Reform MPs who the likes of Wes Streeting say are irrelevant?
Well, I mean, it was a political conference. It was the Scottish Labour Party conference. You expect at a political party conference there to be political speeches. You know, there are Scottish elections coming up, so obviously they're going to address the parties in the same speech. He addressed the SNP, the Tories and the Scottish Green Party. So it wasn't just Reform. I mean, talking about polling companies, Opinion this month said that actually the Labour Party are losing more votes to the left parties, you know, Green, Lib Dems and independent candidates than they are to Reform. The Tories are actually the ones that are hemorrhaging more to Reform. You know, they're not rattled, but I think it would be stupid not to be concerned by the Reform UK, obviously, because they've got the ear of a lot of working class communities with, you know, strong speakers like Lee Anderson. The Labour Party do need to step up and start communicating to the working class communities better.
Well, I think Reform came second. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, but Reform came second in 89 seats in the last election in July, all red wall seats. So they are up for grabs, potentially 89, 90 MPs. And also, can I just show you this? Reform, in the branding of Reform, Labour were dishing out this anti-immigration propaganda in the north of England some weeks ago. We've got a picture, I think. Why were they doing this? There's no sign of them. Look at this. This is a Labour advert. Labour hits 5-year high in migrant removals. Why on earth did they do that in the branding and the colours of Reform UK, Andy?
It's an excellent question. Unfortunately, I don't have a direct line to the campaign director of the Labour Party.
But is it
well, I don't think rattled. I think they appreciate some of the messaging that Reform UK is putting out, some of the concerns that they're appealing to with working class voters in the Midlands and the North. And, you know, it's like the Tories copied some of Labour branding, Labour have copied some of the Tories branding. You know, has been a fair amount of branding copying over the last 50 years. It's not shocking.
Alex?
Well, credit where it's due, they have deported 19,000 illegal migrants. But the fact that they're able to trumpet this as being a great success, all that's showing is how bad the Conservatives were at doing the job before them. Ultimately, we still have thousands and thousands and thousands coming in across the channel on those boats, and this is a drop in the ocean. Because neither main party is prepared to actually grasp the nettle and realise that in order to deal with this problem, you need to make it possible to say that nobody who arrives here illegally will be allowed to stay. Now, we can't do that while we're bound by various international treaties and obligations, ECHR being the principal one. We're the only party that's got the balls to say we need to make those decisions, and the British government needs to be able to make decisions in the interest of British people first.
So on the ECHR, what would you do about the Good Friday Agreement? Because leaving the ECHR is a violation of the Good Friday Agreement. How would you manage that? What's Reform's policy on that?
They would have to look at the negotiations again. And
well, you're the one that's proposing leaving the ECHR. Surely you've thought about, the Troubles would return, wouldn't they, if the Good Friday Agreement collapsed? Is that what Reform UK want? Are they anti the Good Friday Agreement?
Certainly not. We want to see continued peace in Northern Ireland. The Good Friday Agreement is part of that.
But how would it be upheld if you're going to leave the ECHR? How would it be upheld if you want to leave the ECHR?
What we're here to talk about tonight is the failure of successive governments to get a grip on immigration. Somebody has to stand up and say we need to change the rules, and that's how we get there.
Andy, what happens next week if Donald Trump and JD Vance, who I think is rumoured to be speaking with the Prime Minister as well next week, what happens if they mention Nigel Farage or Reform to the Prime Minister? And indeed in the press conference, there'll be a press conference, and somebody's going to ask that question. I'll be very disappointed if they don't.
I'm sure they will. I mean, you've got your fantastic US correspondent, Steve Edgington, out there on the Hill, don't you? So I'm sure he'll be asking the questions we want. But, I'm sure Keir Starmer, he's an experienced politician, he's Prime Minister, I'm sure he'll take it in his step. I think, the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of the UK, they're officers within their own right, and I think they'll interact as appropriately as
Is it not a problem, though, for the UK and for Starmer and for Labour when the President of the free world, of the United States, the leader of the free world, is calling out Nigel Farage and Reform and saying how great they are just a couple of days before he's due to meet the Prime Minister?
In fairness, that was I believe, an introduction to the CPAC conference where Nigel Farage was speaking, as was, lots of Conservative politicians.
At the very top of his big speech, I may add. He pretty much opened his speech by calling out a few friends, but then pointing out Nigel Farage in the...
Well, Farage has been a long-time friend and supporter of Donald Trump, both when he was president the first time and, in his years of opposition. So it's not shocking that he's backing his guy, but, the office of the President and the office of the Prime Minister succeed any kind of political debate.
Yeah, OK. Alex, I'll do your job for you. You praised Labour for deportations, and maybe Andy can come back at this, but they were low-hanging fruit deportations. They were... Sajid Javid's brother is now heading the Home Office department in charge of deportations. They are easy deportations with no legal challenges, i.e. Vietnamese people who can go back no problem, Albanians who can go back no problem, they're not fleeing war or persecution or any of that nonsense, and also in some cases they're paying them $3-5 grand for the privilege. So yes, well done Labour for record high deportations, with the caveat that they are easy deportations and also they're paying them as well. And as you rightly said, Alex, small boats keep coming, so really it doesn't matter. Anything to say on that, Andy?
Well, I think, I'm a supporter of the Labour Party in the government, but I think some of the comms they did on this was, reasonably distasteful. I think, if you...
So we've got footage here now. So
yeah.
this is what Labour, this is what the government pumped out. This is Labour in action, doing what the Tories did.
Sure.
They posted videos of kicking Priti Patel in, police jackets, kicking down doors and getting rid of people who shouldn't be here. You said you're disappointed in...
Well, I'm not disappointed. I think it's a bit distasteful. I think if you kind of poll, voters who would be likely to either vote Labour or Reform, which there are a lot of those kind of voters, and you kind of listed them, the kind of types of migrants that they'd want, deported on a plane and videoed, I doubt that Vietnamese women would be at the top of that. I think, really, if you want to kind of appeal to, the swing voters, then you really need to kind of take on the issues that they see in their communities.
Do you know what?
Which I don't think is Vietnamese now, women who, lots of the time are actually victims of human trafficking.
Pigs will fly. Pigs will fly tonight because I agree with you, Andy.
Oh, huge.
The threat of Vietnamese nail bar workers who will do my wife's, your wife's, your granddaughter's nails in a bar, hard-working people most of the time, the risk of them staying in the country compared to, say, some of the small boat arrivals, many of whom could be Islamists. I mean, some have been proven to be Islamists. They've killed people on the streets of Britain. What's the risk-reward of getting rid of them? I'd say... yeah, very little.
And this is the absolute heart of the problem. So we've had Keir Starmer today saying that reform is dangerous. No, what's dangerous is having thousands of undocumented illegal migrants entering the country uncontrolled. What's dangerous is having the highest tax burden since the war, the national insurance hike, pushing small businesses into extreme difficulties, pushing the country into recession, and particularly having a very strong impact on part-time, low-paid and young workers entering the workforce in hospitality, in retail. That's what's dangerous. And what's also dangerous is the lunatic fantasy of net zero, which means we've got the most expensive energy prices in the Western world. It means that our chemical industry is on the floor, our automotive industry is on the floor, and our steel industry
Ed Miliband would have...
That's the real danger.
Ed Miliband would have something to say about that. He'd say, yeah, we need to save the planet, don't we? Alex, Andy, thank you very much. Appreciate your company this evening. Coming up, is free speech under serious threat in Keir Starmer's Britain? Did you see the front page of the Mail on Sunday today? Absolutely balmy. The thought police knocking on a granny's door because she dared criticise a local Labour councillor on Facebook. More of that with Lord Toby Young in just a tick. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello there. It still remains cold in Greece and Turkey with the risk of showers stretching westwards as well, but dry across western parts of the Mediterranean. Canary Islands, 17, 18 degrees. Madeira as well, seeing some bright or sunny spells. Dry across central southern parts of Spain and Portugal. Rain across the north, and then showers for Italy across into Greece, where it will also feel quite hot, cold. Temperatures 8, 9, 10 Celsius. Turkey as well on the cold side. Does slowly start to warm up through the latter part of the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
That's football.
Well,
it's the hope that kills you.
It does. It gives you highs, it gives you lows. I mean, if you're an Everton fan at the moment, you probably had far too many lows. But as you know, I'm a Nottingham Forest fan.
Well, you must be having a huge high.
But you had one of the greatest footballers ever to grace the game, Mike, and that was Dixie Dean.
Yeah, absolutely. William Ralph Dean. Didn't like being called Dixie, but that was his nickname. And he was born in 1907. He was my grandfather's best mate. I'm an Everton shareholder. I've been, attached to the club all my life, and so was my father, so was my grandfather, our greatest ever player.
So back in the day when players like Dixie Dean were playing football for big crowds in, you know, a proper
72,000.
Yeah, a proper working class sport back in the day, weren't it, football? Not like it is today. You got to be pretty wealthy to afford a ticket.
Even in the 70s, right? And I've seen some, you know, I do like looking back on the football that I watched as a kid. Even in the 70s now, I've seen pictures of the turnstiles, as we used to call them, with a sign at the top, 5 shillings for the Eastern Terrace. 5 shillings. Yeah. Last time I turned down a ticket to go to a football match was Arsenal, who wanted me to pay £830 for a seat in an executive lounge. And though I could have afforded it, because I've worked all my life like you, I just thought at that point, that's ridiculous.
Well,
you know?
You should have told him you were Keir Starmer's security man. You'd have probably got him for nothing.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea. Yeah.
But you know, you go back to the the 1930s and 1940s, even the 1960s and 70s. You know, the footballers would walk to the ground and play a game, and then walk back and go for a few beers in the pub.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo's Tonight. Now, earlier this week, 2 police officers paid a visit to a grandmother, Helen Jones, simply for criticising Labour politicians on social media. In a post on a local Facebook group, Miss Jones, commenting on a Labour councillor involved in the WhatsApp scandal that saw Health Minister Andrew Gwynn resign in disgrace earlier this month. If you remember, he said, amongst other things, that he hoped one of his constituents would die. She said, this woman, Helen Jones, said of a local councillor involved in that WhatsApp group, "Let's hope he does the decent thing and resigns. I somehow think his ego won't allow it." In another post about the councillor, after posting screenshots from the Trigger Me Timbers WhatsApp group, Mrs Jones from Heaton in Greater Manchester wrote, "Not looking good for the councillor," to which another member added, "Councillor, will you be resigning?" Very tame stuff. This is the moment police, thought police we can call them, came to the door to offer her advice.
I'm a police officer, Helen. To you. You gonna fix it? Okay. Okay. We'll give you.
Yeah, OK. We're joined now by the director of the Free Speech Union, Lord Toby Young. Toby, good evening. Thank you for your company. Look, I really want to, I said last night, by default, respect the police. But when I see Tweedledum and Tweedledee in that clip there, flashing their badge because they want to talk to a granny about something she's posted online, they make it really difficult for me.
Yeah, I think they make it difficult for most of us, Ben. Everyone knows that if you get burgled or your car is stolen or you want to report a mugging, it's actually quite hard to persuade the police to send anyone round to your house. They give you a crime reference number and tell you there's not much they can do. And if you're lucky, someone turns up, 3 or 4 days later. So for these 2 plainclothes officers to be dispatched to this grandmother's house, seemingly because the partner of this Labour councillor that she, as you say, was only very mildly criticising in a sort of community chat group. The partner of the Labour councillor in question complained to the police. God knows what he was thinking. But nevertheless, the police thought, oh, well, we've received a complaint from the partner of a Labour councillor. I guess they thought that councillors are particularly at risk in this febrile political moment. There have been a few attacks on elected politicians. So we better go round and have a word with her and advise her that what she said in this chat group has really upset the Labour councillor. I mean, it feels like they were trying to fire a shot across her bows at the behest of a local politician who happens to belong to the ruling party. I mean, it's sort of like almost like a sort of comical version of 1984. You know, yes, they're the thought police, but they almost turned up in a clown car at her house. I mean, they didn't. It's sort of sinister, but completely ridiculous at the same time, and that's typical, I'm afraid, of Starmer's Britain.
Well, I was going to say, Toby, I was going to get onto that. What does this say about the Labour government, if anything, and Keir Starmer? Is this indicative of, I guess, they have been accused of this growing theme of authoritarianism and anti-free speech? Can we directly link this kind of incident? Because the police are independent, of course, from the government, and they're not political either. But can we link the two?
Well, I think the police do take seriously allegations made by elected politicians, and seemingly, I mean, this is the second example in a few weeks of someone finding themselves in trouble and visited by the police because of a complaint by a Labour councillor. The other one was much more serious. That was a former Royal Marine called Jamie Michael, who posted a video on Facebook, a 12-minute video, urging people to protest about illegal immigration.
And he went to court, right?
And he was charged with stirring up racial hatred, absurdly. And the maximum sentence for that is 7 years. But the Free Speech Union found him a really good solicitor, a really good barrister, and it took the jury all of 17 minutes to unanimously return a verdict of not guilty. But given that people are finding themselves being prosecuted, in some cases being sent to prison for hurty words on social media, in message groups. I mean, it's not surprising that this grandmother was pretty terrified when these police officers turned up and told her that there'd been a complaint, and they took it seriously enough to come round to her house. You know, it's not surprising that she was pretty intimidated by this. And I think there is this nasty, intimidating tone that's sort of really got abroad since Labour became the government. And people are now, I think, petrified that if they say the wrong thing, if a member of the ruling party complains that they've expressed an opinion that they don't like, that they could end up in prison, which is, you know, not where we should be in birthplace of parliamentary democracy.
I mean, I laugh because it is so comical, as you say, but actually it's very serious, sinister and chilling at the same time as well. Does the Free Speech Union do any work with police forces? Do you offer your own advice or guidance on how coppers can use their time more efficiently?
Well, it's such sort of basic common sense. You wouldn't have thought that they'd need to hire a consultancy group to advise them not to investigate this kind of minor thought crime when there are so many unsolved crimes in Greater Manchester. We did do some. We submitted some FOI requests to all the police forces in England and Wales to find out how much training they were getting about our legal protections for freedom of speech. Did they know about Article 10 in the European Convention of Human Rights? Did they know that lots of times people prosecuted for speech crimes are acquitted, and the judges affirm the importance of freedom of expression when they send them on their way? But no, the answer was the amount of training that the police get about our right to free speech and the legal protections for our free speech are absolutely minimal, little to none, compared to, of course, all the other stuff. All the other stuff that they're bombarded with: critical race theory, gender identity ideology, EDI. They get that, you know, that's coming out of their ears. But no, free speech, it's almost unheard of.
There's a surprise. Well, Toby, just for clarity, if anyone's watching at home, this grandmother, Helen Jones, she committed no crime. The coppers said she committed no crime, and they were there to give her quote-unquote advice. So make of that what you will. Lord Toby Young, thank you, Director of the Free Speech Union. Appreciate your company this evening. Thank you very much. The police, Greater Manchester Police, they said in a statement, We spoke to the woman for 6 minutes to advise she was the subject of a complaint of harassment and to answer any questions she may have. No further action is necessary as no crime has been committed. We are under a duty to inform her that she is the subject of a complaint. The genuine threats that have been made to local councillors recently have meant it has been more necessary to ensure all reports are looked at. On this day, officers were making 203 arrests for crimes like assault, burglary and rape. Tackling these priorities are why the complaint was dealt with 2 days after it was reported. I'm not meant to comment on rights of reply, so I won't, but I could say plenty about it. Coming up, Conservatives claim victory in Germany as the CDU come out as the largest party in exit polls, but with the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, they call it far right, but they're just a populist national party, they've come out in second place. So what does that mean for the landscape of Europe and the political future? This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's been an unsettled end to the weekend. We have Met Office warnings in force before sunshine and showers return on Monday. Taking a look at the bigger picture, then we have a deep area of low pressure out towards the northwest, a real squeeze in the isobars, indicating strong winds with this cold front sinking south and eastwards. So there is a Met Office amber rain warning in force for southern parts of Wales, so do take care. Could be disruption on the roads, but also some flooding. And this band of rain will continue to move its way south and eastwards through the night. Clearer spells behind that across Northern Ireland and Scotland. Chillier here, but it's going to be a damp but mild start across southern parts of England and parts of Wales as we start Monday morning. So a damp start across the southern parts of England, but mild. Temperatures here already at around 10 degrees. Across Northern Ireland, sunnier spells coming through and across northern parts of England and into Scotland, but we'll start to see the return of some showers, and some of the showers still could be on the heavy side. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, then that rain clears across southeastern areas, so turning drier for a time with some sunny spells developing, but we'll also see some showers start to bubble up, and some of these could be on the heavy side. Most frequent and heaviest are going to be across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland, but for most we should see some sunny spells, just feeling pleasant enough in the sunshine, highs of 13 or 14 degrees. So to start Tuesday morning, we have a band of rain across the southeastern areas once again. Behind that, we should see some sunny spells, but we'll also see frequent scattered showers developing more widely across many areas on Tuesday. Similar picture on Wednesday, perhaps with some longer spells of rain, but temperatures will return to average with some colder nights to come. Bye-bye.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. Now we head to Germany, where the Conservatives have claimed victory after the exit polls in their election reveal that the CDU, the Christian Democrats, are the most popular party. The AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, came second, projected to take just under 20% of the vote share. However, despite needing to build a majority, the CDU leader Friedrich Merz has vowed not to go into government with the AfD, surprise, surprise, leaving the possibility of having to go into government with Chancellor Scholz's centre-left party, the SPD, and the Christian Democrats' Bavarian sister party, the CSU. Keeping up, Chancellor Scholz has conceded defeat to members of his party in Berlin, while the AfD leader Alice Weidel claims her party can overtake the CDU at the next election. All right, well, let's get this explained in layman's terms now by the former UK editor of Die Zeit magazine, Jürgen Kronig. Jürgen, good evening. Thank you for joining me. Our viewers, and a lot of those all across the UK and indeed Europe from the centre-right, were keen to know how the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, got on. Where does this leave them? Are they ever going to be able to form a coalition?
I mean, it is one of the ridiculous situations which you described it without really knowing it. The CDU, a centrist party, not even center-right, it's sort of mixed, is the strongest party. But don't forget, it used to be a party which gained more than 40 or 45% in the past. The Social Democrats are the horrible losers of the election. They just got 15, 16%. And they were once a party which got 40, 45% of big chancellors, Willy Brandt, Helmut Schmidt, Gerhard Schröder. Now it's a splinter party. And the CDU refuses to consider a cooperation or a coalition with the AfD, which forces it to liaise and form maybe a coalition with the loser party, the Social Democrats, which were punished by the voters, as were the Greens, former coalition partner in the last government. I mean, this just illustrates the dilemma in which German policy has steered itself by demonizing and isolating the AfD instead of trying over the last few years to slowly bring it in and civilize it and try to push out the more radical elements and unpleasant elements which are without doubt inside the AfD. This is exactly the dilemma of Germany, and it is shocking, and I expect you will have to cover another German election in a few months' time.
So what's shocking, Jürgen? The AfD, the vote share, the massive vote share for the AfD?
No, what is shocking is that the two big parties,
yes,
the Social Democrats and
Olaf Scholz's party, the Chancellor's.
Olaf Scholz's party.
Absolutely blasted. I mean, what does that say about the electorate and the view of...
Yeah, it just proves that the voters wanted to punish the government parties, especially the Chancellor Party, as the Social Democrats, for neglecting, for failure in the immigration policy, for stopping crime, the creeping Islamification of Germany, the series of violent lone wolf terrorist attacks across the country, like in many other European countries, and for the failure in energy policy and for ruining the German industry by high energy prices. I mean,
indeed, net zero. Who would have thought the deranged march to net zero wouldn't be popular? Jürgen Kronig, thank you for your company. Appreciate it. We're short of time, unfortunately, but really grateful for your company. And by the way, 14% still voting for the Greens, despite all the conjecture and the proof that net zero doesn't do anyone any benefit. Indeed, in Germany, all around the world. Back in just a tick with all the headlines. Don't go anywhere.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's been an unsettled end to the weekend. We have Met Office warnings in force before sunshine and showers return on Monday. Taking a look at the bigger picture, then we have a deep area of low pressure out towards the northwest, a real squeeze in the isobars, indicating strong winds with this cold front sinking south and eastwards. So there is a Met Office amber rain warning in force for southern parts of Wales, so do take care. Could be disruption on the roads, but also some flooding. And this band of rain will continue to move its way south and eastwards through the night. Clearer spells behind that across Northern Ireland and Scotland. Chillier here, but it's going to be a damp but mild start across southern parts of England and parts of Wales as we start Monday morning. So a damp start across the southern parts of England, but mild. Temperatures here already at around 10 degrees. Across Northern Ireland, sunnier spells coming through, and across northern parts of England and into Scotland, but we'll start to see the return of some showers, and some of the showers still could be on the heavy side. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, then that rain clears across southeastern areas, so turning drier for a time with some sunny spells developing, but we'll also see some showers start to bubble up, and some of these could be on the heavy side. Most frequent and heaviest are going to be across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland, but for most we should see some sunny spells, just feeling pleasant enough in the sunshine, highs of 13 or 14 degrees. So to start Tuesday morning, we have a band of rain across the southeastern areas once again. Behind that, we should see some sunny spells, but we'll also see frequent scattered showers developing more widely across many areas on Tuesday. Similar picture on Wednesday, perhaps with some longer spells of rain, but temperatures will return to average with some colder nights to come. Bye-bye.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Ben Leo, and breaking tonight in tomorrow's Times newspaper. A truly tragic story. Get the handkerchiefs ready for this one. Stonewall, the controversial LGBTQ+ charity, may have to cut half of its staff due to President Donald Trump's aid freeze. Their 114 employees in Britain are reportedly shell-shocked. Maybe their influence on gender identity will now be a thing of the past. In the Daily Telegraph tomorrow, the BBC are expected to be grilled by MPs, that's bosses, on the powerful Culture, Media and Sport Committee in the Commons. That's amid their so-called propaganda Gaza film that featured a Hamas minister's son. The Beeb apologised, of course, and removed the film from iPlayer after the scandal was first exposed. But the big question is it time to finally defund the BBC? In the Times, a British couple in their 70s have been arrested by the Taliban, apparently for teaching parenting skills to mothers over 30. Peter and Barbie Reynolds, who's 75 and 79 respectively, who loved Afghanistan so much that they married in Kabul in 1970 after meeting at the University of Bath. They'd been running training projects in schools in Afghanistan for 18 years and even stayed after the Taliban's sudden return to power in 2021. Anyway, they're banged up in a Taliban prison tonight. On the front page of Monday's Telegraph, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said he's willing to quit and step down if doing so secures peace and NATO protection. And also, fewer claimants who refuse to seek a job are having their benefits cut, despite Labour plans to tackle Britain's joblessness crisis. And this is a good royal scoop. Prince William's former royal aide has accused Meghan Markle, or who did rather accuse Meghan Markle of bullying some years ago. He's broken his silence, as well as giving a first-hand account of Princess Catherine's cancer diagnosis.
Do you remember that phone call between you and William about Kate's diagnosis?
It was awful. Absolutely awful. It's the lowest I've ever seen him.
So there we go. Who would have thought Stonewall, the LGBTQ plus charity, at risk tonight, in crisis, all because of President Donald Trump? Let us know what you think about that. gbnews.com/your say. My panel return, of course, in just a sec. Businessman and activist Adam Brooks, GB News contributor Chloe Dobbs, and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Big second hour coming up. Lots of stories to get stuck into. But first, let's get your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good evening. The top stories. Pope Francis remains in hospital where he's also experienced mild kidney problems but continues to be alert and well-oriented, according to the Vatican. Pope Francis has asked for prayers today as he continues to receive treatment in hospital for double pneumonia. The 88-year-old spent a tranquil night in hospital last night at the Gemelli Hospital in Rome, according to the Vatican. It described his condition as critical for the first time yesterday, reporting he'd also needed blood transfusions. Elsewhere, Sir Keir Starmer and the French president have agreed to both discuss showing united leadership in support of Ukraine when they meet separately with US President Donald Trump next week after the pair spoke today. The Prime Minister and Emmanuel Macron used a phone call today to reiterate their support for Kyiv as the pair gear up to visit Washington, D.C. Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky says he's willing to give up his position as president for peace in Ukraine or a NATO membership. Zelensky says it's not his dream to remain president for a decade. His comments come as EU leaders are due to meet in Ukraine tomorrow. Sir Keir Starmer has urged Donald Trump to stand by Ukraine with a security guarantee and warned a bad peace deal would be a disaster for everyone. Writing in The Sun on Sunday, Starmer said Kyiv needs strong security guarantees so the peace will last, and he says America must be part of that guarantee. Breaking news this hour, a British couple in their 70s have been arrested by the Taliban in Afghanistan. 79-year-old Peter Reynolds and his wife Barbie, who's 75, were returning to their home in Bamiyan on the 1st of February when they were detained. The couple have been running training projects in Afghanistan for 18 years. It's not known exactly what the couple were arrested for, but projects run by them include one training mothers and children, which had apparently been approved by the local authorities. Mr. Reynolds has been denied access to heart medication and his condition is reportedly not good. In other news, the polls in Germany have closed. Votes are being counted, with the exit poll predicting the Conservative Christian Democrats will be the biggest party with 28.5%. Germany's Conservative leader Friedrich Merz has said he would try to form a government that represents the whole country. Meanwhile, the AfD are on as much as 20% of the vote, Social Democrats on 16.5%. In a post on his Truth Social website, the US President Donald Trump said this is a great day for Germany, adding the German people got tired of the no common sense agenda, especially when it comes to energy and immigration, he said. Well, the nation has grappled with economic decline and a succession of highly publicised attacks on their streets. And finally, a 16-year-old boy has been arrested after a teenager was stabbed in front of shoppers in Primark in a store in Nottingham city centre. Nottinghamshire police said the 17-year-old is in hospital with serious injuries after being stabbed in the chest. Officers believe there was an altercation outside the store between a group of young people before the attack took place. Nottinghamshire police says the 16-year-old was arrested on suspicion of causing grievous bodily harm. And those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more news in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back. Lots of newspaper front pages have just dropped. Let's start with The Independent. These are, of course, all of tomorrow's papers. The headline reads, 3 years on, the true cost of Putin's invasion. Lots of stats there. For example, nearly 7 million Ukrainian refugees globally, apparently. 254,000 of them in the UK. We move on to the Daily Express. Waspy women threaten legal action in payouts row. The Waspies have threatened the government with court action over their refusal to compensate millions hit by changes to the state pension age. The Eye, Labour's plan for 1.5 million new homes under threat from skill shortage. This is interesting, isn't it? I think, was it last week or the week before, we had a similar front page that the 1.5 million homes that Angela Rayner wants to build is under threat because of... it's the same story, isn't it? Bricklayers, 25,000 bricklayers needed, 10,000 carpenters, 4,000 plasterers. Yeah, maybe we can discuss that with you in a second, Bill, but it's that looks a rehash of a story we did last week.
We discussed it last week.
We did, and it sounds to me like the building industry are doing a very good lobbying job to get more foreign workers into the country.
OK, we'll talk about that in just a sec. And the Metro, Volodymyr Zelensky today has said he would quit, he would resign if it meant peace in Ukraine, only though if Ukraine became a member of NATO, which I don't think will ever happen. Shall we look at the Telegraph as well? Zelensky, it leads with the same message there. I'll quit if it brings peace. And at the bottom here, the price of the Chagos deal talks not revealed. That's the Foreign Office refusing to talk about the Chagos deal. But in the Times is the story we'll focus on. Get your handkerchiefs ready. Get your thoughts and prayers ready, because thanks to President Donald Trump in America and his attack on government waste and foreign aid, it appears that Stonewall, the controversial LGBTQ+ charity, will be losing up to half of their UK workforce, 70, 80 people. Adam Brooks, Chloe Dobbs, Bill Rammell. Adam, let's start with you. What do you make of this?
Good.
Good?
Yeah, I'm sick and tired of groups like Stonewall forcing schools and corporations to inundate us with LGBT+ and a million letters propaganda. You know, kids don't need to know about a lot of this stuff, especially the trans agenda. And the day that they're gone is the day that I'll celebrate.
So apparently, Bill, Simon Blake, the chief executive of Stonewall, made the announcement in an office-wide call yesterday afternoon, which is said to have left his 114 staff shell-shocked. Insiders believe the announcement was linked to decisions made by Trump over the bid to slash foreign aid. Is this a good thing? Because in recent years, for example, I'll explain where the controversy comes. For example, Stonewall in recent years have tweeted that 2-year-olds could be questioning their gender identity, that 2-year-olds could somehow be transgender, which I think is chilling, sinister nonsense. Yeah. Can you see why some people will be celebrating this news tonight?
At one level, yes, I can. And it baffles me how Stonewall ever got USAID funding. You know, development assistance coming into the UK to fund an organisation like Stonewall, beggars belief. Historically, Stonewall have done good work in campaigning for gay rights, and I think in terms of us becoming a more liberal society, I think that's been a good thing. But where they went wrong was to get into bed with transgender extremists. And there are too many organisations who've gone down that route and have unquestioningly supported an agenda that attacks the rights of women in this country.
Who's the other one? Mermaids?
Yeah, there's several. Yeah, but that includes them.
Said, I've got to say, I'm sitting there nodding for once in agreement with Bill.
It's not the first time.
You've just summed it up.
He's a good lad, Bill.
Just summed they did great work for gay people back in the day, and they've turned into this monster.
Yeah, they've turned in the wrong direction, and I've got a load of gay friends, and they're embarrassed of organisations like Stonewall, people who used to champion their rights. Now, you know, people who are gay have been lumped up with all these other letters of the alphabet, with organisations like Stonewall. Arguably, they support the mutilation of children, I would say. That's how I would put it. It's using little kids as lab rats, feeding them with puberty blockers, advocating chopping their bits off far too young. I think this is a fantastic thing that Trump is clamping down on this, and hopefully, one day the UK may be able to look at what Trump has done, not with just this, but just cutting government waste in general, and learn something from it.
So, Bill, Richard Wright has echoed your question a second ago, saying, what on earth was USAID paying for Stonewall anyway? How was it being done? Well, let me shed some light on that if I can. So funding from the US came to Stonewall through the Global Equality Fund, this is according to the Times tomorrow, administered by the US State Department, which has given the charity more than £500,000 in the past 3 years. In recent years, get this, and by the way, this just personifies how extensive USAID was around the world. All these little grants and loans everywhere and money being funded. Lots of it were CIA funds, which has now been uncovered. But the GEF, the Global Equity Fund, which came from USAID and then to Stonewall in the UK, has funded Stonewall's Alliance Against Hate Crime project in Georgia, Romania and Bulgaria, which the charity said worked to improve support for victims of hate crime and to advance dialogue with police and law enforcement. I mean, millions and millions and millions of pounds, Bill, in this USAID revelation going to absolutely, in my opinion, absurd projects. Taxpayers have been fleeced.
Well, it's beginning to make a little bit more sense in that it's not money that's been spent in this country, but it's been spent by Stonewall in the developing world. And that was the bit that was baffling me, how it could be spent here. And there is an argument, gay rights, are by and large not challenged in this country. In many parts of the world, they are. People can be stoned to death for being gay.
And yet we're letting tens of thousands of people that believe that into this country every month, or every few months.
Well, we're actually legitimately trying to cut illegal immigration to this country and cut asylum.
Can you see the problem, though? That this is a big problem.
Yeah, but you can't. I've said it before. You can't turn immigration round overnight, given the lamentable state
I thought it was quite hypocritical when Labour MP Nadia Whittome, the day after putting up a post saying that we need to welcome Palestinian refugees to Britain, then put up a speech of her talking in Parliament about how the world is becoming a very scary place for LGBTQ plus people.
But they don't like that argument.
I'm not sure that the Palestinians are celebrating LGBT rights every day.
Yeah, there are many parts of the Middle East where, if you're a gay person, your life's under threat.
Indeed. Shall we move on to this other story in the Telegraph tomorrow? So the BBC chiefs are going to be summoned to the Media Select Committee in Parliament next week. I think, is it Caroline Dinenage, Bill, who heads that? So basically, as we all know, they aired this, what is being called a propaganda Gaza film, which featured the son of a Hamas minister. Who would have thought the BBC would do that? Anyway, they said it was a mistake. They've issued an apology, taken the documentary off iPlayer, but that's not the end of the matter. So the BBC is going to be summoned, as I said, to Parliament to speak to Caroline Dinenage in the Media Select Committee to explain what the hell was going on there, Adam.
Yeah, I mean,
Do we need to defund the BBC?
Yes, we do. But let's also remember that the BBC has been forced to apologise for its coverage of the Gaza conflict about, I think, 12 or 14 times, where they've just simply parroted Hamas propaganda, or they've got the story wrong. And it always is wrong in favour of Hamas and not Israel.
Do you remember the airstrikes? Was it
Yes.
said December 23, I think? Where
Well,
they said
the hospital.
Israel said they striked the hospital.
Yeah.
Turned out it was a Hamas rocket that went AWOL.
And this is what I'm saying. So the BBC effectively is a state-funded channel, and people will argue it's not, but if you don't pay the licence fee, you end up in prison. So it is technically forced upon us. Even if we just want to watch the great GB News, we have to pay a BBC licence fee. Yes, it needs to be defunded.
Oh, yeah, they sent me a scary letter the other day saying I could be fined thousands and thousands
You know you don't have to let them in.
They haven't knocked on the door.
I'm not advocating doing that.
I don't have...
Stick to the rules, but I'm just saying you don't have to let them in.
They sent it to my office and say...
There's
no TV there, but they still sent a letter saying we'll fine you thousands and thousands. Big scary letter, must open now, 10-day window to respond.
Well, I don't support defunding the BBC. I'm a supporter of the BBC, and I think our national life is the better for it. But what does concern me is this is the latest in a series of, quote, scandals where the BBC has been so slow to react, so slow to repudiate what has happened. Part of the problem, I think, is the BBC subcontracting out the making of programmes to private organisations and then saying it's nothing to do with me, Governor. Well, that doesn't wash.
That doesn't. No disrespect, they're either idiots or they're complicit in pushing out this propaganda. Which one is it, Bill?
You're responsible if you've commissioned it.
Yeah, you are.
Decide how much oversight you have.
Exactly, and that's the point I'm making, and I don't think it's good enough, and I think the BBC needs to sharpen up its act.
Can I ask what you like about the BBC? You say it's important for British life. What do you personally admire about it?
I think it provides a degree of objectivity in news production that doesn't exist in other channels. It provides news coverage throughout the world that is respected, that provides soft power for the United Kingdom, and it provides an awful lot of entertainment through the licence fee that people value. And for all those reasons, I think we would be worse off without it. It doesn't mean you don't need other channels, but I think you need a strong, good national broadcaster.
Bill, should I have to pay for the BBC when I don't watch it?
Well,
this is the thing. This model is...
Let Bill answer that one.
You have to pay taxes for all sorts of things that you don't necessarily use and you might not agree with. That's called a democracy.
Sorry, Chloe.
I think that the BBC does a lot of good work, which you've outlined, Bill. But when they do stuff like this, it is going to infuriate people when they are being forced to pay for a channel which they often do not watch, especially when there are plenty of other channels that have to fund themselves with advertising and whatnot. But the BBC, they just get it all paid for and they can do whatever they want. I'm glad to see that they're going to have to be grilled by MPs and finally be held to account. I mean, we had a report come out saying that they had breached their own guidelines over 1,500 times.
Nothing happens. They mark their own homework.
Yeah.
Imagine if GB News was allowed to mark their own homework. The outcry.
We'd be flying. I'd be king of the world. Ratings through the roof. Yeah, the Beeb mark their own homework. They're not,
No, they don't. They're attacked from left and right the way across the country, and that's always been the case. And frankly, that's a healthy thing.
And get away with it though, Bill, when they're wrong.
No, they do. I think the BBC faces more scrutiny and challenge than any other broadcaster.
Are they fined?
Because it's publicly funded.
Bill? Are they ever fined? No, I don't think they are. GB News and other channels are fined.
We've got a new front page has just dropped, which is very relevant to this conversation. It's the Daily Mail tomorrow, breaking hot off the press. The front page, Kemi Badenoch is now applying pressure on the BBC. She's asking, was licence fee payers' cash given to Hamas? She's demanded to know if licence fee money was given to the terror group during the making of that controversial documentary. Here's the front page on your screen now. This is tomorrow's Daily Mail. So, and in an extraordinary letter sent by the Daily Mail, it says here, Mrs Badenoch has called for an inquiry into any potential collusion with Hamas and the possibility of payment to terrorists. Bill Ramwell, has the BBC been paying terrorists? If so, what's happened?
But hold on. If this is anything, it's cock-up, not conspiracy. Well, I don't think anybody is seriously claiming that the BBC or one of its companies set out to deliberately fund Hamas. That's not the argument. It's that they didn't do their due diligence, they didn't do their research, and they ended up with someone from Hamas doing a voiceover for the documentary.
Fine, Bill. Let me come back to you because Kemi Badenoch actually writes in the Mail tomorrow. She has written, it is not an isolated incident, and any review of the BBC must root out this is systematic and institutional bias against Israel. She said it's not an isolated incident. I know you're saying it's a cock-up from a production company.
In terms of someone who's related to a Hamas leader presenting a BBC documentary, this is a one-off and it is a cock-up. It's not excusable. It never should have happened. But to try and widen that out as this is something that the BBC is deliberately engaged in, I think is a million miles from the truth.
Dozens of so-called mistakes in the Gaza conflict they've had to apologise for.
Do you agree it's systemic, as Kemi writes?
I believe so. I believe so. The coverage that I've seen, I believe there is an agenda at the BBC.
I mean, look, we've looked earlier in the programme of videos of the streets of Britain, Hamas supporters parading around with fake coffins. There are clearly plenty of people in this country that are Hamas supporters. I would not be surprised if in the woke bubble of people working at the BBC, especially people who are getting involved in the documentary, which I'm sure people who are very, very passionate about the Palestinian cause are getting involved with, I would not be surprised if they were intentionally putting on air people who are part of Hamas.
So what happens, guys? What happens if the BBC has been found to deliberately pay Hamas?
Are they going to get a slap on the wrist, or are they actually going to be held to account for once?
No. If that's done deliberately, then they've got to be held to account. But if there's no evidence that's the case.
I pay a BBC licence fee at home, at the pubs, and God knows where else. And my money is potentially going to terrorists. This can't be right, and
it's not right. And but you know, the suggestion that this is deliberate, I've just seen no evidence whatsoever that that's the case.
Let's get the inquiry and hope something is uncovered.
Okay. Great discussion. Really interesting story. It's going to develop and develop, I think. As I said, the BBC chief execs, maybe Tim Davie, are going to be hauled into Parliament next week for the Select Committee with Miss Dinage. And now Kemi Badenoch is saying, well, she fears that the BBC or the BBC production company, whoever was responsible for that documentary, may have paid terrorists with BBC licence fee money. What happens then? Apparently, someone here said a word which alludes to messing something up beginning with C. You can probably imagine that's offensive, apparently, according to Ofcom rules. So apologies about that. Anyway, moving on. Bill, time now for the Great British Giveaway. If you want to be one of 2 new winners, each with a new iPhone, shopping vouchers and £10,000 in tax-free cash, here's all the details you need to win.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British Giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Good luck to you. Coming up, Prince William's former royal aide, who first blew the whistle on Meghan Markle's bullying claims, finally breaks his silence after many, many years. And he has some interesting comments about Prince William, about Princess Catherine and her cancer diagnosis, stuff that you would never have heard before. We've got the clips. We'll show it to you next. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, we're going to introduce you to a friend of mine, friend of the programme now, and that is Katie Nicholl. Katie is the role correspondent at Vanity Fair, and she has got a tale to tell, and this tale began, well, here we are on Valentine's Day, Katie, and this was 2 years ago, and this was a horror story we're talking about.
Yeah, it was a bit of a horror story. It wasn't the Valentine's I'd wanted or expected. I got a call from the Royal Free. I'd been in for an MRI earlier on in the January, and for my liver, and I got a call saying that I had cholangiocarcinoma, which I had no idea what it was.
I have no idea what it is.
I know. Well, Dora, who is my surgeon, who...
Say, no, this
yes.
is your surgeon. It's very important, lady, and this is Dr. Dora. And you really did do the explorer bit. You had to go in there and cut out this cancer.
Yeah, correct.
But tell us what sort of cancer this is.
So this is a primary liver cancer that arises from the bile duct of the liver. So it's not a metastatic coming from elsewhere, it's a primary. It doesn't arise from the hepatocyte itself. I mean, imagine that the liver is like a red thing, and inside it growing something like a green tree with a lot of branches. So within those branches, we have the epithelial cells, the bile duct cells, and this is where this cancer comes from.
I felt that I was possibly perimenopausal. I was getting these heart palpitations. I was getting really, really bad sense of indigestion, but nothing that was making me overly concerned. But I was with a girlfriend, and she just said, "Are you all right?" And I burst into tears. I said, "You know, I just don't feel myself." And she said, "Just go see your GP." And I did.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Now, a pretty big royal story going to be hitting the newspapers tomorrow. Prince William's former royal aide, who first raised concerns about Meghan Markle's alleged bullying, has broken his years-long silence in an Australian documentary. Well, I'm delighted to be joined by the editor-at-large for the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. Charlotte, welcome, good evening. What's going on? Who is this bloke? Why is he important and what's he said?
So Jason was the press secretary for both brothers back before they were completely at war with one another. And he grew especially close to both of them, and he remains really close with William, but he's long since stopped working for the royal family.
Jason Nauf.
Jason Nauf is called. And during his time there, he presided over the wedding of Prince Harry. And in the build-up to that, and around 2018, he accused Meghan of being a bully and bullying a number of PAs out of their job. And he said that there were many, many cases of this. And this was long before she was labelled Duchess Difficult or Dictator in High Heels, as she was dubbed last year. And it was our first sense that there was something not quite right between those brothers. And, of course, now we all know how it's ended. And he's still very, very close with William. But what he's done in this documentary is doubled down by saying he wouldn't change a thing. He's not repeated the allegations, but he's saying he's standing by them, basically.
So he's not repeated them, but he pretty much has confirmed them. Should we take a quick look? So it's 60 Minutes Australia. This is Jason Nauf, William and Catherine's former aide, former secretary.
Yeah, former communications secretary.
Talking yesterday, I think the documentary's out tomorrow, talking about the Meghan bullying claims. Take a look at this.
While Jason was keeping a close eye on the couple's public image, behind the scenes, a storm was brewing. Just a few months after he joined them on this trip to Ireland in 2018, their first as husband and wife, Jason raised concerns the Duchess was upsetting junior staff.
I am very concerned that the Duchess was able to bully 2 PAs out of the household in the past year. We have had report after report from people who have witnessed unacceptable behavior.
So in the next clip, we'll see Jason speaking about Prince William. But so this is... he's still friends with Prince William and Catherine.
Yeah.
Would William and Kate had to have given him permission to do this?
Certainly.
So is this an indirect attack on Harry and Meghan?
I suppose you could characterise it as that, for sure. And it's definitely the first time he spoke, because he's spoken since this all happened, because he kind of went to ground after that and he just didn't really speak again. So for this to have come out now makes me think William must have given him permission.
So you reckon the bad blood between William and Harry potentially is still there? I mean, that's what I conclude. I don't think you need to be an expert to...
Or he's building up to some... Because this is an Australian programme, 60 Minutes, so I don't know whether William's building up, because it's mostly about William's reputation. Of course they had to touch on Harry.
Why Australia?
But I think maybe something's building, because, you know, it's really important to them to keep in with Australia. You know, we want Australia to have a monarchy.
There was the Sunday Express front page, I think it was today, was about a new poll in Australia saying that they wanted William and Catherine to become... the popularity of the pair was on the rise. So this seems very, you know, it seems planned almost.
It does, and Jason is a communications legend. I mean, he is seriously good at his job, and that's why Meghan consulted him quite a lot and worked really closely with him when she was around.
Shall we see what Jason now said about Prince William and Catherine's cancer diagnosis? Take a look.
Catherine's heartfelt announcement came after weeks of intense and sometimes bizarre speculation about her health.
Where is Kate Middleton? Where are you, Kate?
It made an already terrible time even more stressful for the future king.
Within a couple weeks, if you're Prince William, you find out that both your wife and your father have cancer. And that is, I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Do you remember that phone call between you and William about Kate's diagnosis?
It was awful, absolutely awful. It's the lowest I've ever seen him.
Wow, that is extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, this is the most the closest account of what it was like to receive that news from William that we've ever had. And it really, he's done such a good job of communicating just how much pain William was in. And it's actually setting the tone for Australia, because obviously they're going to have a lot of sympathy for him. And, you know, he didn't have to do the whole Oprah Winfrey, William laying it on thick act. He's been able to just give us a real insight about how painful it is to think your wife could be dying of cancer if you're not careful.
And actually, it's quite a clever way of communicating that through your former aide, your friends, as you said, not directly sitting down in front of some celebrity interviewer and doing what Harry and Meghan did. Yeah, classy, I think.
Yeah, very classy. And Jason goes on to say in the documentary that William has very much deliberately taken that route. You know, it's been 5 years since Megxit, and he's deliberately played this very, very long, slow game.
Yeah.
And winning sympathy now.
OK, great stuff, Charlotte. Shall we look at some more front pages that have just dropped? We'll start with The Guardian. Conservatives set to lead German coalition as far-right party surges. This, of course, is the update on the German elections taking place tonight. The AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, I mean, they're called far-right, but I like to call them just national populists. I don't see what's wrong with that.
They are much further right, then, than any of the populist parties in Europe. You know, one of their leaders had a slogan called a Holocaust memorial of shame. They are ultra-right.
Let's remember also that Alice Weedle is a lesbian, and she's also partnered up with a Sri Lankan lady as well.
Do you know what, Bill?
So she's a funny far-right figure if that is the case.
Do you know what? Germany has been subjected to some, I mean, even in the last couple of weeks, how many terror attacks, how many people killed, coppers killed, kids mowed down at Christmas markets. I don't think German people care about conjecture about things these AfD people have said. They want their country back. They want their borders
I get the
secure.
impression they've tried to clear up the party's image, clear out anyone who has got dodgy things to say, and I'm sure the vast majority of people voting for them are not racist and are normal people who have genuine concerns.
I didn't claim that, but if you look at the policies, if you look at the statements of their leaders, it makes Reform look like a pinko Liberal party.
Well, Reform... Oh, OK, I'm not going to get on Reform. Let's look at the Times very quickly. Hard right on course for big gains in Germany. Brits held by the Taliban for helping women. So there's 2 elderly pensioners banged up in an Afghan prison tonight, unfortunately. And the Sun front page. This is interesting. Maybe we'll discuss this after the break. Fat jabs such as Ozempic linked to 82 deaths in Britain. This is a Sun investigation. Maybe after the break, I'll ask my panel and guests if any of them have been taking the old jabby instead of getting down the gym. We'll find out. Back in just a tick with more stories. Don't go anywhere.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there. It still remains cold in Greece and Turkey with the risk of showers stretching westwards as well, but dry across western parts of the Mediterranean. Canary Islands, 17, 18 degrees. Madeira as well, seeing some bright or sunny spells. Dry across central southern parts of Spain and Portugal. Rain across the north, and then showers for Italy across into Greece, where it will also feel quite hot, cold. Temperatures 8, 9, 10 Celsius. Turkey as well on the cold side. Does slowly start to warm up through the latter part of the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
An absolute monster. It took Chloe and Sean Ing 90 minutes to reel in this gigantic 8-foot-long monster fish from Chigborough Fisheries in Essex. And upon weighing this enormous marine beast, it was found to have been 7 pounds heavier than the existing British record, a 143-pound catfish caught also in Essex. But as I understand it, you actually went for a Chinese meal when fate struck. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So I was fishing an area of Chigborough where you have to fish at a fair distance. So I cast my rods out and then we ordered a Chinese. And yeah, so I got the bite at about 10 to 8 at night. And then about 20 minutes into it, my phone started ringing, the Chinese guys at the gate with my delivery. So I had to send a couple of guys off to go and get it. And then, yeah, the fight, obviously, you can't just stop the fight to go and get your Chinese. So, yeah, the fight went on, for about an hour and a half in total. There's no net in the world that's big enough for this fish. So we had to send out, first of all, I sent out a mate, Alex. He went out there to go and basically use what we call a sling. So that's a safe apparatus that we use to take the fish out of the water. He then went and he turned around and he was like, we're going to need another sling. So then we sent out another friend with a sling, and these slings are 4 foot long each. So then we had the catfish wrapped up in 2 slings, and it was still slightly longer than that. And then we got to a point where we was like, now we've got to try and get it out of the water to photo, to weigh it, because obviously we knew then that it was possibly going to be a UK record.
GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo's Tonight. Let's look at the front page of the Sun newspaper tomorrow. Interesting story about fat jabs, such as Ozempic. Apparently, according to the MHRA, the medicine agency here in the UK, responsible for medicines and vaccines and so on, we heard lots about them during COVID, 82 people have died in the UK from taking these jabs. That's the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. That toll was up until the end of January, just gone. So yeah, I mean, Charlotte, you've got some interesting takes on this, haven't you? Tell us what your experience is with Ozempic.
Well, this is very embarrassing to admit, but before Ozempic became something we were all talking about, when there wasn't much awareness over it, I took Ozempic. A friend of mine had some in her fridge, and she got it off the internet. She was not fat. I wasn't fat. But we were curious, so we took some Ozempic. We thought we'd lose 10 pounds for the summer. It's so embarrassing. But I took too much. This was early summer, spring.
Last year?
It hadn't been, last year. And we were like, let's get thin for the summer. I mean, I know it's stupid, but we took this Ozempic. I took 1 milligram. You're supposed to start on 0.25 for a month, then go on to 0.75. I just sort of went, oh, this is a fun game. And I was so sick. I mean, I could not move for 2 days. I was violently sick. I was calling 111. I was very ashamed of myself. I've written a piece about it for the Mail on Sunday about my shame, about, you know, how stupid. But I have to say, I'm not isolated. Lots and lots of people get it on the internet. They don't know what they're doing. It hasn't been prescribed, and they're idiots like me, and they make themselves incredibly ill.
So these jabs are for people with, I mean, for people with diabetes who are massively overweight. Why? Yeah. I mean, with respect to you, you don't look overweight.
No, but a lot of people were doing it, you know, and still do it. That's why there's a problem about buying them online, because they want to just try it, just do one jab to lose 10 pounds for the summer or whatever.
That's unbelievable.
I know it's vain.
People will buy anything.
It's a thing, and lots and lots of women are doing it. Just like in the 80s, people drank the cabbage soup for a week.
Yeah, but this is now injecting something into you. This shows the farce of the whole system, that someone like you, who's clearly not overweight, is able to take a fat jab. This should be for morbidly obese people that are clogging up the NHS and that are really last minute, or it's the last line in sort of their treatment. Otherwise, they can't do it. This, I mean, let's remember during COVID, this government shut health clubs and gyms and
this government.
No, or the government, and kept open.
Same thing, pretty much.
And kept open McDonald's. You know, society and governments have got this all wrong. We need to promote healthy lifestyle instead of fat jabs, because people are dying, and you know, people like yourself jabbing to lose weight is not what society. Big Pharma are the only winners here.
I think there's 500,000 Brits who take Ozempic or similar products, and according to the Sun, 82 have died. So I guess it's a small majority. But you should also, by the way, just for clarity, you should also consult your doctor before doing it and not doing what Charlotte did.
But Ben, there's a real stretch with this story. If you read it, there's no causal link, as I can see it, between taking Ozempic or the equivalent and actually dying. All they've recorded is that 82 people died who, by the way, were taking Ozempic. Well, and this has gone through numerous hurdles to get approval within the National Health Service.
What does that remind you of, Bill, about methodology?
It's new technology.
Dying after contracting something or taking something. Where did I go?
Exactly. I mean, these
it's COVID. That's how they recorded COVID deaths, wasn't it?
Could be a farce.
And it was wrong, and you said it was wrong.
You be recorded as a COVID death. But regardless, whenever someone says to me a medicine has no side effects, I hear people saying, Ozempic's amazing, there are no side effects, it's fantastic. I always take that with a pinch of salt. I'm very sceptical. I think medicines generally should always be taken sparingly. This should not be available online for people to buy. It should only be available for people who really desperately need it.
I'm glad you're okay, Charlotte. I'm glad you're with us.
Only my ego was done.
But Ben, just please promote to the viewers that stay healthy, eat better, go and exercise. You don't need to jab yourself to lose weight unless you are morbidly obese, and it's the last option.
Well, I hate people using this as a cheat, saying, oh, amazing, I don't have to go to the gym anymore, I don't have to eat healthy anymore and actually stick to fruits and veggies, I can just eat what I want and never exercise. I'm sorry, that's not good for you in the long run.
Exactly.
Well, sorry, Adam, I have done that before. I've preached eating healthily and going to the gym, and I get called patronising, so I won't do that. But anyway, consult your doctor if you want to take Ozempic. Go to the GP and do it the proper way. Should we look at the Times newspaper? This really extraordinary story from the elderly couple, their pensioners, I think 75 and 79, who are tonight detained in a Taliban prison in Afghanistan for, well, they've been accused of teaching women in the country. So, British couple Peter and Barbie Reynolds, who loved Afghanistan so much that they married in Kabul in 1970 after meeting at Bath University. They've been running training projects in schools there for 18 years, and they even stayed after the Taliban's sudden rise to power in 2021. But apparently now things have got bad. They've taken a turn for the worse because they were caught allegedly teaching women over 30, which has, for some reason, earned them a prison sentence. Bill, any thoughts on this?
It's a shocking story. I actually think one of the worst foreign relations scandals of recent years is the abandonment of Afghanistan. It started under the first Trump presidency, carried on by Biden, and we have abandoned women within that country to this awful situation. And then there's two good, well-meaning elderly people who've been caught up in the backstream of that. It's shocking.
And they're teaching parenting skills. I mean, it's so harmless.
Can I say, though, I mean, with... how do I articulate this without upsetting anybody? We had the 2 Brits who went on a motorcycle ride into Iran this week, who have also been detained. Am I right to maybe suggest or ask, you know, what the hell are you doing in these places? You know, you mess around and find out, as the internet meme is. You know,
These people were already there.
I think I think there is a distinction. Travelling through a country, you need to undertake your due diligence. By the sound of it, they've lived in Afghanistan for donkey's years, and you know that's their home.
OK, well, I wish them well. I hope they're released. Maybe Keir Starmer or President Trump can do something for their release. So fingers crossed for those two. Talking of President Trump, did you see this clip doing the rounds yesterday? It was the president discussing men playing in women's sports with the governor of Maine, an absolute far leftist, to be quite frank. She was saying, I'm not going to listen to this federal law saying that men are banned from women's sports. Trump hits back. This is the clip. Take a look.
Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
Well, we are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one.
That was Janet Mills clashing with Donald Trump. She's the Democrat governor of Maine who said she wouldn't be listening to the federal executive order that men shouldn't play in women's sports. What a hill to die on, Chloe.
I mean, I thought that was absolutely fantastic. He completely put her in her place. And this video sends a strong message to other people, world leaders and whatnot, that you do not mess with Trump.
And as well, any trans women that are playing in women's sports are nothing less than cheats. All of them are cheats. And we must stick up for women's rights and girls. I've got a little girl that plays football. When she's old enough, you know, to play in an all-girls team, I do not want trans competitors in her team or
I wholly agree with you. You know, trans men competing in women's sports is wholly wrong. And in this particular regard, I think Trump is right. However, I listened to his words carefully, and when he says we are the federal law, that is one of the problems with Donald Trump. He sees no distinction between his role as president and a separation of power with the courts.
OK, all right, we've got to go to a break. More front pages in just a sec. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's been an unsettled end to the weekend. We have Met Office warnings in force before sunshine and showers return on Monday. Taking a look at the bigger picture, then we have a deep area of low pressure out towards the northwest, a real squeeze in the isobars, indicating strong winds with this cold front sinking south and eastwards. So there is a Met Office amber rain warning in force for southern parts of Wales, so do take care. Could be disruption on the roads, but also some flooding. And this band of rain will continue to move its way south and eastwards through the night. Clearer spells behind that across Northern Ireland and Scotland. Chillier here, but it's going to be a damp but mild start across southern parts of England and parts of Wales as we start Monday morning. So a damp start across the southern parts of England, but mild. Temperatures here already at around 10 degrees. Across Northern Ireland, sunnier spells coming through and across northern parts of England and into Scotland, but we'll start to see the return of some showers, and some of the showers still could be on the heavy side. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, then that rain clears across southeastern areas, so turning drier for a time with some sunny spells developing, but we'll also see some showers start to bubble up, and some of these could be on the heavy side. Most frequent and heaviest are going to be across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland, but for most we should see some sunny spells, just feeling pleasant enough in the sunshine, highs of 13 or 14 degrees. So to start Tuesday morning, we have a band of rain across the southeastern areas once again. Behind that, we should see some sunny spells, but we'll also see frequent scattered showers developing more widely across many areas on Tuesday. Similar picture on Wednesday, perhaps with some longer spells of rain, but temperatures will return to average with some colder nights to come. Bye-bye.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing.
With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that.
When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time now for next week's stories, where my panel say what they think will be hitting the headlines in the coming days. First up is Adam. Adam, what do you think the big story next week will be?
After Keir Starmer has labelled Reform UK dangerous and basically labelled all of us far right again, I think you could possibly see Reform UK hitting 30% in some polls. And I think they might get another 10, 20,000 members as well. This attack on the normal average working Brit is not going down well, and it's backfiring on.
Bill says you're talking hogwash and he wants to meet you in the car park.
I think there's a ceiling of the reform vote, about 26-27%. And never forget, for every one voter Farage attracts, he repels two others.
Chloe, your big story for next week, what do you think's coming?
I think we're going to have a continued focus on the German elections, not only because the negotiations over a coalition will take some time, but I think that people, especially with the rise of the Reform Party, are going to be looking here to see can newer fringe parties do well in the polls and do well in the ballot box. Because a lot of people say, oh, when it gets to the ballot box, people will freak out, err on the side of safety and pick the parties they know. But clearly the German elections show that impressive things are possible.
Yep, things are happening. Bill, what's your thoughts for next week?
The biggest story by far is going to be Keir Starmer's meeting with Trump in the White House.
When is that? Thursday?
Thursday. And, you know, Trump is tearing up the way that we've kept peace and security for 76 years. It's going to be extraordinarily challenging. It would be for any British Prime Minister. And I think he's going to have to, one, stick to principles. So, you know, no settlement in Ukraine without Ukraine being involved, Europe being involved, but he's going to have to pitch his arguments in terms of Trump's agenda. So he's going to have to say the timetable for moving forward with defence spending. He's going to have to couch the arguments about tariffs in terms of US interests, and he's going to have to overlay it with a huge amount of flattery. And never forget how narcissistic Donald Trump is, and he responds to flattery.
Well, yeah, and it's Keir Starmer, of course, who requested this meeting. Donald Trump seemed a bit blasé about it when revealing to reporters. He said, well, apparently he wants a meeting. I said, come on then, come to Washington. We'll see what happens. Charlotte, what is on the horizon, do you reckon?
Well, the Mail always sets the agenda, and the Mail front page is this BBC licence fee payers cash given to Hamas. And I do think that this could spell the end of Tim Davies' career at the Mail, at the BBC. And in the long term, I think this could be the start of the final death knell for the BBC licence fee.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, Kemi Badenoch actually writes in your newspaper today, she's saying, we need an inquiry. Did the BBC pay Hamas terrorists for this documentary? Is there going to be an inquiry? Who is going to the select committee with Caroline Dinenage, at the media select committee? BBC execs are going to be there. They're going to be grilled about this documentary. Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is the start of something big.
I disagree because, you know, under the last Labour government, there was the resignation of the chair and the chief executive of the BBC, and I don't think a Labour government is going to want to be involved in that for a second time round.
Tim might have to fall on his sword if he has.
Well, that might be a different matter.
Ben, we get used to adverts on nearly every other channel. Well, you know, could we not have adverts on the BBC to fund it?
Yeah,
well, we've got an advert for Hamas, so that's something, isn't it?
Oh, there we go. And on that bombshell, on that mic drop from Charlotte Griffiths, coming up next, it's Headliners presented by Leo Kerr. Leo, what's in store tonight?
We've got a cracking show tonight. We've got Simon Evans and Steve N. Allen on the panel, and we're going to be talking about fat jabs are apparently sometimes bad for you. Some people have been dying from them, so maybe you should just eat some salad instead. Has anybody tried that? We've also got the results from the German election, which are coming in with the sort of hard right AfD be on for doubling their amount. And also, Trump foreign aids have impacted Stonewall. They weren't going to starving kids in Africa.
Oh, I forgot about that. Stonewall, what great news tonight. I'm sorry for people who are losing their jobs, but Stonewall could have said they had it coming. Adam, Chloe, Charlotte, Bill, thank you. Thank you at home as well for your company this evening. Very much appreciated. I'm back next Friday on Britain's Newsroom. Up next is Headliners, and here's your weather. Have a great week ahead.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, it's been an unsettled end to the weekend. We have Met Office warnings in force before sunshine and showers return on Monday. Taking a look at the bigger picture, then we have a deep area of low pressure out towards the northwest, a real squeeze in the isobars, indicating strong winds with this cold front sinking south and eastwards. So there is a Met Office amber rain warning in force for southern parts of Wales, so do take care. Could be disruption on the roads, but also some flooding. And this band of rain will continue to move its way south and eastwards through the night. Clearer spells behind that across Northern Ireland and Scotland. Chillier here, but it's going to be a damp but mild start across southern parts of England and parts of Wales as we start Monday morning. So a damp start across the southern parts of England, but mild. Temperatures here already at around 10 degrees. Across Northern Ireland, sunnier spells coming through, and across northern parts of England and into Scotland. But we'll start to see the return of some showers, and some of the showers still could be on the heavy side. So as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon, then that rain clears across southeastern areas, so turning drier for a time with some sunny spells developing, but we'll also see some showers start to bubble up, and some of these could be on the heavy side. Most frequent and heaviest are going to be across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland, but for most we should see some sunny spells, just feeling pleasant enough in the sunshine, highs of 13 or 14 degrees. So to start Tuesday morning, we have a band of rain across the southeastern areas once again. Behind that, we should see some sunny spells, but we'll also see frequent scattered showers developing more widely across many areas on Tuesday. Similar picture on Wednesday, perhaps with some longer spells of rain, but temperatures will return to average with some colder nights to come. Bye-bye.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway. First, you'll win a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash to spend however you like. You'll also receive the very latest iPhone 16, and we'll send you on a shopping spree with £500 to spend in your favourite store. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.